The private dining room at the Fairmont San Francisco was grand, imposing, even, but it felt stifling. My father's 65th birthday celebration was in full swing. Champagne flowed, laughter echoed, and guests toasted to his decades in finance. I sat at the far end of the table, quietly pushing my grilled halibut around my plate, blending into the crisp white linen as much as I could. "And here's to my son, Nathan," Dad announced, his voice booming with pride. He lifted his glass high. Now a senior partner at Westbridge Capital. Just like his old man. My brother stood, basking in the applause. His Rolex caught the light, gleaming like it was part of the chandelier. His suit was sharp enough to cut glass, tailored to perfection. Nathan had the pedigree, Wharton, elite internships, the Ivy League wife. "Thanks, Dad," he grinned, ever the image of grace under the spotlight. "Learned from the best." I took a sip of wine, the familiar bitterness crawling up my throat as I remembered every time they asked me, "Why can't you be more like Nathan?" Choosing robotics over finance, building a tech lab instead of joining Dad's firm, investing in innovation instead of status symbols. "And then there's Zoe," my mother said with that smile I knew all too well. It was polite, but brittle. "Still working with those gadgets, right, dear?" "Advanced robotics and neuro-AI interfaces," I replied, voice calm and steady. "We just wrapped up a project improving autonomous surgical systems." Right, Dad waved it off. At least Nathan chose a real profession. That old sting flared up again, but I kept my composure. They didn't know that the tech they mocked was behind next-gen medical breakthroughs on 5 continents, or that the garage they thought was laughable had grown into a 300,000 square foot RD facility in Palo Alto. "Have you seen Nathan's Aspen estate?" Mom gushed. 12 acres, ski in, ski out access. "It's so modest." Nathan shrugged, that effortlessly charming grin on his face. "Zoe, you should visit sometime when we're not using it." I glanced down at my wine, thinking of my own places. Residencies in Kyoto, the Swiss Alps, an AI-secured retreat in New Zealand, hidden behind shell companies and intellectual property trusts. A toast. Uncle Greg rose, glass in hand. "To David Bennett, father of a financial legend." "And to Zoe," Aunt Linda added, her voice trailing off, "she's doing something." I smiled faintly. They'd find out soon enough. I watched my father. There it was again, the slight grimace, like I was a blemish he had to politely ignore. He adjusted his cufflinks and cleared his throat. "Well," he said loudly, as if shifting the tone, "at least one of my children isn't a disappointment." The room fell silent. Then awkward laughter bubbled up. "Nathan understood what it means to build a real career, to create a legacy," Dad continued, eyes scanning the room as if his words were gospel. "He's made the Bennett name something to be reckoned with in the financial world." The silence that followed felt suffocating. Even for him, this was harsh. "David," my mother murmured, putting her fork down, "maybe that's a bit much." "No, Camille," Dad said, his voice sharper. "It needs to be said." He turned to me, eyes cold and cutting. "Zoe, you had every advantage. The best education, endless support, and what did you do with it? Playing startup founder in some warehouse near Soma?" He leaned forward, his voice suddenly steady and firm. "People ask me what went wrong with my daughter." I placed my wine glass down gently, the crystal tapping against the table with a sound that felt louder than it should have. "What went wrong?" I echoed, my voice quiet, but sharp enough to slice through the tension. "Yes, Zoe," he said, almost sneering. "While your brother is acquiring firms and making headlines, you're still what? Writing code in a garage?" I thought of the contract waiting on my desk, the neural architecture breakthrough we had just finalized, the global healthcare partnership we were about to announce, the 3 buyout offers I'd turned down this quarter alone, each worth more than $500 million. "Zero. Nathan," my mother said gently, her voice the only soothing thing in the room. "Say something." Nathan, ever the peacemaker, smiled faintly. "She's doing fine. At least she's independent." "Independent?" Dad scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. "Is that what we're calling failure now?" He pointed at me with his glass. "At 36, your brother was already managing over $1 billion in assets. You're 36, and all you've got is some tech fantasy. You're not Steve Jobs, Zoe." I scanned the table, met eyes with the same smug faces, toasting Nathan, sneering at me silently. My fingers brushed the edge of my phone. I'd kept my success quiet for a reason, but tonight was different. "You want to talk about legacy, Dad?" I stood, steady and composed. "You want to talk about the Bennett name?" "Zoe," my mother whispered, her voice a sharp warning. "Please, it's his birthday." I slid my phone to the center of the table, facing everyone. Let's give him a gift. On display, my primary business account balance, 47,282,465.19. One account. A fork hit the table with a clink. Someone gasped. What is this? My father asked, his voice cracking. I swiped to another screen. Bennett Neural Systems. Our latest valuation is $4.3 billion. You might know it better as BNS Group. We were behind the autonomous systems featured in Forbes last month. Nathan's face faltered. In Forbes? You own BNS? I build BNS, I said, my voice unwavering. He blinked, stunned. You're the one who turned down Amazon's offer? They low-balled me, I replied. I opened the offer screen. Amazon, Meta, Samsung. All rejected. I have bigger plans. You're lying, my father muttered, the words heavy with disbelief. I tapped into public filings. See for yourself. Though you won't find my name easily. I value privacy. It's why I built an empire while you all mocked my coding hobby. My mother stared in stunned silence. Nathan was frantically scrolling on his phone under the table. You mock the warehouse? I continued, cool as ice. It's a front. Our real HQ is 3 floors in the Crosswind building downtown. Nathan's face drained of color. We've been trying to lease space there. You'll need to talk to the owner, I said evenly. That's me. The room was frozen now. No movement, no sound. But why didn't you ever say anything? My mother's voice was small, hurt. I locked eyes with her. Because none of you ever asked. I turned to my father, my words measured, deliberate. You wanted to talk about legacy in Silicon Valley? The Bennett name means something, but just not because of you. And with that, I sat back down, took my wine, and sipped slowly. He stared at me, a new understanding beginning to form in his eyes. For the first time in years, he wasn't seeing his awkward little daughter. He was seeing a woman he had overlooked, underestimated, and now, one he had to reckon with. Among other things, I added, settling deeper into my chair, our healthcare division is scaling fast. We're transforming diagnostic AI in ways that could save millions of lives. My father was still speechless. His mouth opened slightly, then closed, as if trying to find the words but failing. The Sterling Tower, he muttered, trying to regain his composure. That's a $300 million property. I corrected him calmly. It's worth considerably more now after the upgrades. Would you like to see the deed? My mother's hostess instincts kicked in, though she was rattled. She reached across the table, her diamond bracelet sparkling under the chandelier. Darling, this is wonderful, but why didn't you tell us? We could have helped, made introductions. I pulled my hand back gently, my voice firm. Introductions? Like when you told the Hamiltons I was wasting their time? Or when Dad advised his clients to steer clear of my hobby? Her face went pale. She remembered. 3 years ago, the Hamiltons had been ready to invest, but my parents convinced them I was a risk. We were trying to protect them, Dad said stiffly. And protect you from failure. Protect them? I laughed, quiet but bitter. Those who did invest saw their money grow 800% in 18 months. The Hamiltons tried to buy back in recently. I shrugged. I declined. Uncle Greg, who had been barely acknowledging me all evening, suddenly leaned forward, intrigued. Zoe, my son's launching a crypto-based tech startup. I was wondering. No, I said, my tone firm and unyielding. I'm not entertaining pitches from family. Not anymore. But we're family, Nathan protested, his voice rising slightly, an edge of desperation creeping in. That has to count for something. Does it? I turned to him, remembering the sabotage. Like when you convinced your firm not to consider my proposal? Told them my software lacked structure right before it was adopted by their competitors? He turned pale. I didn't know, he muttered. No, I replied quietly, you didn't. None of you did, because you never cared to ask. I stood, dropping my napkin, feeling the weight of my next words. You were all so sure you knew what success looked like. The corner office, the ski home, the Ivy League connections. You never imagined something revolutionary could be built by the black sheep, in silence. Sit down, my father snapped, his voice regaining some of its authority. We need to discuss this as a family. Your company, these opportunities. Opportunities? I raised an eyebrow. Now that you know I'm worth billions, suddenly my computer thing is worth talking about? Don't be difficult, my mother said hurriedly, her voice panicked. Your father's just trying to understand. We all are. It's a lot. I scanned their faces. Uncles, aunts, cousins, people who had spent years pitying me, mocking me. Now they stared at me like I was some newly discovered treasure, their eyes glinting with something else, calculation. You know what's funny? I said, reaching for my purse. I used to dream about this moment, proving you all wrong, showing you what I built. I paused, letting the words settle. But now, I've realized something. Your approval stopped mattering to me years ago. Zoe, wait. Nathan stood quickly, his voice filled with a hint of urgency. There may be synergy between your tech and some of our firms. Synergy? I laughed, a humorless sound. Now you want synergy. What happened to my amateur garage hobby? My father shoved his chair back. Enough. I won't have you ruin my birthday with this spectacle. If I've built something worthwhile, fine, he said stiffly, trying to regain control. But your attitude. My attitude, I snapped. Like your attitude when you called me a failure in front of the entire family? Or when you couldn't even visit my office once in 7 years? He fell silent. And in that silence, I saw it. For the first time in my life, my father didn't know he was right. I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope, placing it on the table with a quiet finality. Happy birthday, Dad. He eyed it warily. What's this? Something interesting? I leaned in slightly, my voice low but clear. The deed to your law firm's building. His eyes widened in shock. SPECKG Group bought it last month through a shell subsidiary. Consider this your notice. Your rent doubles next quarter. Market rates. I added with a smile. You understand? Chaos erupted. My mother gasped audibly. Nathan, frantic, was already Googling. My father just stared at the envelope as if it might explode. You can't do this, he whispered, his voice barely audible. But I already have. He found his voice again. You can't actually do this. I tilted my head, unshaken. Actually, I can. It's called good business sense. Isn't that what you always taught me? I smiled at him, not cruel, just clear. Don't worry, I'm not being vindictive. You're welcome to stay at the new rate, or feel free to find another building in the city. I paused, letting the weight of it settle, though you might want to check who owns those first. I turned to go, but Nathan reached out and caught my arm. Wait, at least let me take you to lunch next week, just the two of us. Talk, sister to brother. I gently pulled my arm free. I'm afraid I'm busy. I'll be finalizing the acquisition of your firm's biggest client. His face went pale. You mean the same client you convinced to reject my software proposal? Don't worry, I said softly. I'm sure your partners will understand. After all, it's just business. Zoe, my mother called out as I reached the door. What do you want from us? I paused. For years, I would have had an answer. Validation, respect, something resembling love, but now, nothing. I said simply, that's the beauty of success. It shows you what matters, and what doesn't. As I walked out of the private dining room, the noise exploded behind me. Raised voices, chairs shifting, my phone buzzed. First Nathan, then Mom, followed by a flood of messages from relatives, suddenly interested in my life. I stepped into my waiting car. The office, please, I told James, my driver. He glanced up in the mirror. Everything all right, Miss Bennett? Better than all right, I said, the words tasting sweet. I just gave my father his birthday gift, the truth. Back at my real office, the top floor of Sterling Tower, I sank into my leather chair. My phone lit up again. Mom, please call. Nathan, let me explain. Dad, call me immediately. I ignored them all. I had bigger things to focus on. My team had just sent over the latest acquisition briefs. BNS Group was weeks away from announcing a breakthrough in predictive neural AI. My net worth was about to double. Then, a knock at the door. Sarah stepped in. Your brother Nathan is in the lobby. Says he won't leave until you see him. I glanced at the security feed on my monitor. There she was, Emma, still in the same designer dress from the dinner, but now visibly unraveling. Her poise was gone. Her confidence cracked. She looked like someone desperately clinging to a version of the world that no longer existed. Tell her my schedule is full, I said, not even looking up from my screen. But she's welcome to book an appointment through official channels, of course. Sarah nodded and stepped out. I watched Emma receive the message. Her shoulders stiffened. The exact moment she realized this wasn't going to be one of those conversations where charm and old ties would work. Her face hardened, and then she turned and left. I leaned back in my chair, gazing out over the San Francisco skyline. The lights twinkled, like ambition realized. For years, I'd let their narrow, outdated definition of success diminish me. Ivy League degrees, law partnerships, applause at the dinner table, but I'd been chasing the wrong prize. Success isn't about proving them wrong, it's about proving yourself right. I picked up my phone one last time and typed out a single group message. Thank you for teaching me that failure is subjective. Turns out, so is success. Rest assured. The rent hike? Strictly business. Just like you always preached. Oh, and Emma, your firm's former client sends their regards. They're thrilled to implement B&S Group's legal AI platform through your competitors. I hit send. Then I turned off my phone and slid it into a drawer. There were acquisition briefs to review, international rollouts to plan. My attention returned to the glowing proposal on my desk. Empires aren't built on family validation. They're built by those willing to be underestimated, and I've been underestimated for the very last time. If you've made it this far, thank you. Truly, I'm not here to play the victim or ask for sympathy. I'm here to remind you that sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's not about shouting your success. It's about becoming so undeniably excellent that even your silence echoes. So, if you felt even a spark of something while watching my story, drop a comment below. Tell me if you've ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to believe in you most. Or maybe you're still building quietly like I once was. If that's you, I see you, and I promise your time will come. And if you're ready to walk with me through more stories like this, stories of quiet strength, long overdue recognition, and power finally reclaimed, then hit that subscribe button. This journey isn't just mine anymore. It belongs to everyone who's ever been called a failure before proving they were the future. Here's what I learned. Validation from others is optional, but belief in yourself is non-negotiable. So take the risk. Bet on yourself. Build your empire in silence.